Good evening and welcome to a Transfer Deadline Day special here on the Blood Red channel. Myself, Guy Clarke, joined by our Liverpool correspondent, Paul Gorst, to discuss the one major deal in town for the Reds this evening, closing in on a loan move for Juventus midfielder Arthur Melo. Well, Gorsty, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the deal. All summer long, Liverpool fans have wanted a midfielder. Looks as though they're going to get their wish.
It does, but I would suggest it's not exactly the profile of player that Liverpool fans were imagining, perhaps earlier this season. I think when it became clear that Liverpool missed out on Aurelien Tchouameni as far back as April, to be fair, before Jurgen Klopp had even signed his new contract, they were made aware that he'd had his heart set on Real Madrid, and that was pretty much that. So they've had over 4 months to try and source a replacement, and they're scrabbling around with little under 3 hours left of the window, and they're bringing in a player who is coming on loan, who does have pedigree. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but not someone who Liverpool fans would ever have picked from all the dozens of midfielders who've been linked over the course of the summer. It's the first time we heard of Arthur Melo was this morning, wasn't it? Because Liverpool essentially jumped into action after the game last night when it became clear that Jordan Henderson is the latest on the injury list, which also includes Thiago and Naby Keita and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Curtis Jones has only just come back. So Liverpool's recruitment team were hard at it through the night by the sounds of it, and I've come up with Arthur Melo. And I just worry that the thinking has been too long term on this one. They're obviously keeping the powder dry for something big next summer, and supporters always roll their eyes when they hear those words together, next summer, because it seems to be the next summer that never comes to many of them. But yeah, they've left it late in the day, so the good news is they are getting someone, and he comes in. He's got some Brazil caps under his belt. He's played for Barcelona and Juventus, so he's obviously a player with a fair bit of quality, but certainly not the grand all-singing, all-dancing midfielder that many were hoping for when the window opened at the start of the summer. So this is where Liverpool have left themselves now, and needs must, I guess.
You mentioned the pedigree. He's played for both Barcelona. He's played for Juventus as well, a full Brazil international as well. He looks as though he's very much of the Thiago mould of someone who prefers to sit deeper and really pass the ball around and really add another option there for Liverpool. Does it maybe suggest actually how long Thiago might not be available for Liverpool, or the fact that Liverpool do have those concerns over him? And equally, despite his pedigree, he mentioned of playing for Barcelona and Juventus, it feels this one actually throws up more questions than answers.
Yeah, I don't think it's a kind of hint as to how long Thiago's going to be out for this specific injury at the moment, but it certainly does suggest that they're wary that they're not going to get 30, 34, 35 Premier League appearances out of Thiago. Obviously, he's already missed, 4 now, after limping out against Fulham. So, very similar stylistically. I wouldn't say he's anywhere near the class of Thiago, who's one of the most decorated midfielders of the last 10 to 15 years, isn't he? And played for Barcelona and Bayern Munich. But he's cut from the same cloth, I'd suggest, and there was a reason that Juventus paid something along the lines of 70 million euros for him, was it? It was a bit of a strange deal with Middle and Pjanic, wasn't it? Kind of, going the opposite way. But he's certainly got quality and pedigree, and he hasn't played for Brazil since 2019, I believe, but 22 caps in the centre midfield for Brazil shows you that he must be a decent enough player. The issue is he comes in with significant injury baggage of his own, doesn't he? I read Ian Doyle's news piece this morning, and I think he referenced as many as 15 separate injuries, and that is a huge alarm bell to me, because the last thing Liverpool need is another injury-prone midfielder, because let's face it, they've got about 5 of them already. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think they have tried to recruit as close stylistically as they could to Thiago, given the caveat that this is a a midfielder of rare gifts, and you don't get too many like him. But someone who can sit deep, pick the passes at will, keep the ball, keep possession. He's not someone who's going to go box to box. He's not going to score 10 to 15 goals, but similar profile of player. He's only 26 as well, so there is scope for him to kind of recapture some of the magic that had him at Barcelona, that had him at Juventus. But he only made 16 starts last season, which is not a lot. He played 31 times in total, so he wasn't completely frozen out by any means, but somebody who wasn't starting regular games for Juventus. Just the fact that they're willing to let him go on loan on transfer deadline day probably suggests that there's a reason they're happy to let him go.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Plenty getting involved in the comment section. Stephen Watkins saying, let's give this guy a chance. It's disappointing to not get in a real token midfielder, but hey-ho, the season goes on. And Lewis says, still another player with European experience. It will do for this season, more depth and more competition in midfield. But it will do until we try and get Bellingham next season. That was my immediate thought when I saw the loan. There is no obligation in it. It is a straight loan that actually, it to me seemed quite reminiscent to the move to bring in Ozan Kabak, back in January 2021, prior to Ibrahima Konate being available. That was only for half a season, though. This is, albeit, the season started earlier this year. This is for the full duration. As you say, it's really playing the long ball in terms of waiting for a midfielder next summer.
It is, yeah. And there is some merit in doing that and biding your time and waiting for the right player. My worry is, it's kind of the old phrase, isn't it? The old John Lennon quote, life's what happens when you're busy making plans. And it seems that Liverpool have been busy planning for the future. And while that's happened, they've kind of got one eye on the future, but all of a sudden they've got two eyes on it. And they haven't really looked at what's happened in front of them this summer, here and now. And players are getting injured, and Klopp, to be fair, he has performed a little bit of a U-turn on his original stance back in middle of July before they flew to Thailand. He was saying to myself and a few of my national colleagues, he kind of reeled off the list of qualities that he had in his midfield, and he was talking about why he doesn't feel he needs one because he's got basically a mix of every kind of midfield quality that you'd like. And that was all very well and good, and he did have a fairly valid point at the time. But since then, Oxlade-Chamberlain's pulled up, Thiago's pulled up, Curtis Jones, Naby Keita, and now Henderson. It just seems as though things have gone a little bit askew. Liverpool pride themselves on long-term planning and very strategic, concentrated moves, but Klopp himself admitted, didn't he, on Tuesday, that sometimes he would like a little bit more risk, perhaps a little bit more investment, because Liverpool have only spent 10 million net, really, all summer. But this is the compromise that they've had to come to, and I hope I'm not putting too much of a kind of downer on things. The hope is that Arthur Melo will kind of recapture some of the magic from 2-3 years ago, and he's not a busted flush by any means because he's only 26, and he certainly does have a bit of quality about him. So I hope I'm trying to bring a bit of balance to it. Not all doom and gloom, but certainly not the scenario that Liverpool fans would have hoped for when the window opened. Was it early June, was it?
Yeah, no, most definitely. Peter makes a good comment a good point in the comment section. Says Arthur looks good and has good stats, but I'm a bit worried about the intensity of other leagues compared to the Premier League. It took Thiago a year to adjust. His loan would be over by then, but it is a body. You reference Jurgen Klopp's press conference as well, and in which he kind of conceded and said, "Look, hey, I'm wrong. Actually, we will go for a midfielder." It does seem to be rushed, which is it feels un-Liverpool recruitment, like maybe in the recruitment team they've had a list of midfielders' names written away, scrawled away in case of desperation, of need to act late, and Arthur Melo is the guy that they have turned to. But he did also reference in that point, actually, right back at the start of the summer, we did want a midfielder. The one we wanted went somewhere else, and the others we're looking at aren't available, heavily implying and referencing Aurelien Tchouameni, who of course moved on to Real Madrid, and saying others aren't quite attainable and available right now. A lot of people obviously on the Jude Bellingham bandwagon. Nicola Barella's another player who Jurgen Klopp has spoken up in the past, but certainly when it gets this late, deals like that just simply, as Jurgen Klopp said in his press conference himself, just aren't doable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, in an ideal world, Liverpool will have had Tchouameni this summer and Bellingham next summer, and then you're looking at it with in 2023 with Bellingham still 20, Tchouameni 23, maybe 22, 23, and then you've got the core of your midfield there for the next 10 years. That would have been the absolute ideal scenario for Liverpool. I'm convinced of it. And then you've still got the enduring quality of a Thiago, and Fabinho's probably the one Liverpool midfielder who's in his prime at the moment. He's not Harvey Elliott or Carvalho making his early way in the game. He's not a Henderson and more specifically Milner who've been there and done it, and we're kind of getting on a bit. Thiago, slightly younger than them, but still been around for quite a while. So I'm convinced that was the plan for Liverpool, but it hasn't quite come to pass. Bellingham obviously will still be a target for 12 months' time, you'd imagine. But for now, I just feel as though while they're kind of thinking ahead and moving parts and so on, they perhaps took their eye off the ball slightly for this summer, and now they're left with a little bit of a stopgap, short-term, low-cost solution that may be inspired, or it may be one that leaves them counting the cost and you're wondering why on earth did they try that. And I suppose we'll have to wait and see. It's all about the results, isn't it? All about how he adapts. I mean, I think that was a good point. The one about the intensity levels for the Premier League, because he's used to Serie A, where the pace of the game is supposedly a lot slower. But we'll see. I mean, he could go right into the thick of the action on Saturday lunchtime, couldn't he, at Goodison Park? And that might be an absolute eye-opener for him, and we'll wait and see what happens. But I suppose the top line should be that Liverpool have at least significantly added to the department that needed it, really, didn't they? They're dropping like flies in midfield at the moment, so at least it's someone else.
Do we know if he's fit? I mean, he's not featured this season, has he, for Juventus? So you mentioned he's got injury baggage. I mean, I suppose he must be a little bit away from even maybe being thrown straight in. Going into the chat box, Jamal said, still can't believe we didn't try and get Tielemans. It goes to show that FSG didn't want to spend £20 million. Of course, they have gone for a loan option instead. Douglas Luiz and Yuri Tielemans, both Premier League midfield players who are now into the final year of their contract, who maybe the waters could well have been tested. We don't really know. But this trick of going for a loan player, hopefully maybe for Jurgen Klopp, it's third time lucky, Gorsty. I mean, his very first window, Steven Kulka came in a very, I suppose, infamous loan spell. Now Ozan Kabak referenced that one before, and now Arthur Melo, the difference being, as said before, he does have the full season, really, to come in. He wants to get game time and see if he can get himself to the World Cup. And actually, I suppose that is one thing that could benefit Liverpool, that certainly in the short term of this loan, he's got that real hunger to try and impress ahead of the World Cup, to try and get in that Brazil squad. Yeah,
it's a bit of an uphill battle for him. I'd suggest. I don't think he's played for Brazil since 2019, and the World Cup's in 2 months. So it's going to be difficult for him. He's going to have to put in some Superman-like performances in the midfield there to catch the eye, isn't he, for the selection for Brazil? But yeah, I mean, I suppose ultimately it's another body, isn't it? It's someone who does have quality, and I don't think Liverpool are expecting him to come and play 50 games this season. I think he's going to be very much an option, as and when. Henderson's out injured now, so Thiago's injured. Curtis Jones is back at least. That was a bit of good news on the injury front this week, wasn't it? So if you're looking at it for Saturday, you think Harvey Elliott. We thought he was excellent against Newcastle, to be fair. Fabinho nailed on starter now, isn't he? And then what you do with that third man is, do you go James Milner? Do you throw Melo into the mix? It's going to be an interesting one. Do you bring back Curtis Jones for it after a few more days of training?
Carvalho?
Yeah, Carvalho is a shout. So it's not quite as desperate as it was in the the start of 2021 when there was literally no centre backs to call upon. But it's still a far from ideal situation. It will ease in the next few weeks. Oxlade-Chamberlain, you hope there's some kind of improvement on his situation, as he hasn't kicked the ball since middle of July. Thiago, initially between 4 to 6 weeks for him. I think it's been about, just under 4 now, hasn't it? Since he limped off against Fulham. So Liverpool will get players back, and this injury crisis will ease. And Arthur Melo isn't going to be asked to be playing 90 minutes of every game. He will just be another option. So we'll wait and see how he adapts. Really, I think it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, we will have to wait and see how it does play out indeed. But Arthur Melo heading into Liverpool on loan from Juventus, a straight season-long loan for the Brazilian. Do stick across the Liverpool Echo website for all the very latest, the live transfer daily blog on the go. They're here on Deadline Day. But here on this Deadline Day special on the Blood Red channel, thanks for joining myself and Paul Gorst. Until next time, it's bye for now.